Greetings gastronauts, this is KeefCooks, I'm Keef, and it's Christmas! And in the UK it's almost impossible to go through a Christmas season without having at least one mince pie. So, they can frequently be overly sweet and a bit nasty, but mine aren't, mine are delicious, so I'm going to show you how I make mince pies, including how to make the mincemeat. So this is for my stalker, Chrissy Wales, who requested it. So despite containing something called mincemeat, there's no actual meat in this. There used to be centuries ago. It was primarily a meat dish and with fruit in it, and gradually the fruit got more, the meat got less. But it's really lovely stuff, and you might never have thought of making it yourself, but it's actually very easy to do, so I'll show you how to do that. And also making pies. Nothing hard about that, is there? So let's do it. Okay, we have a veritable cornucopia of goodies, and this is your 5 a day for the next week, okay? Honestly. So I've got 3 apples, that's about 600 grams. The zest of 1 lemon, the zest of 1 orange. So all these quantities are pretty approximate. So I've got about 100 grams of prunes, 100 grams of dates, 100 grams of almonds, 200 grams of raisins, 200 grams of sultanas, 100 and something grams of dried apricots, not quite 100 grams of candied peel, a litre of cider, a big glass of brandy, and 150 grams of suet and 150 grams of sugar, and 3 or 4 teaspoons of ground cinnamon and 2 or 3 teaspoons of ground nutmeg. If you use cinnamon sticks, you'll need to fish them out because they're not good to eat. Right, is that everything? Okay, let's cook. So everything that didn't need prepping, like the sultanas, raisins and stuff, are in that pan with the cider. And now I've got to get the zest off the citrus fruits. Got to peel the apples. And then core them and chop them into little chunks. So chop the apples into little dice about this size. Chuck them in the pan. You also want to do the same, well, basically quarter the apricots. Chuck them in. The dates and prunes, if they've got stones in, you'll have to get the stones out and then chop them small again. No stones in these, yes. And also the almonds, chop those, not massively small, but smaller than whole ones. You know what I mean. Sorry, this is me chomping on nuts. Naughty. Right, everything's chopped and in, or everything that should be. We don't use the citrus fruits for this, and the suet and the brandy don't go in until the end. We need to bring this to the boil. Don't forget to put the sugar in, and our spices. And if you haven't got enough liquid, you can just top it up with water, which I will do in a moment. So when this comes to the boil, I'll turn it down to a simmer and we'll let it bubble away for about half an hour and see how we're doing. Right, it's had about half an hour with the lid on, so it's beginning to cook down pretty well. So I'm going to leave the lid off and just let that whole thing reduce. Right, that's looking pretty gloopy, so I'm going to turn off the heat and let that cool down, and then we'll finish it off. Okay, time to finish it off and stick it in jars. It's not completely cool, but that's cool enough. So I'm going to throw in the suet, stir that in. Now, you can get a vegetarian version of suet, and if you can't get suet, you can freeze a slab of butter and then grate it and just coat it in flour, and that does a pretty good job. So I've stirred in most of the brandy, and now I'm just going to pop this into jars. So you could actually use this straight away, but it does improve with age, like me. And so I'm just going to keep these in the fridge overnight and use them on the morrow to make your actual mince pies. And when you've got a full jar, just add a drizzle of brandy, and that'll just preserve the top. we go. Mincemeat. Right, so that was a couple of days ago when I made the mincemeat, and now we're going to make the actual pies. So we need some pastry. I'm going to make a butter short crust. So I've got 500 grams of plain all-purpose flour, 250 grams of softened butter, 200 ml of water, and I probably won't use all of that, and a teaspoon of salt. So first thing to do, throw the salt into the flour, and then add the butter. And you need to just crumble it in with the tips of your fingers, and it should end up as something that looks a bit like breadcrumbs. Okay, that looks crummy enough to me, so I'm now going to add a bit of water and stir that in. You want this pastry to be kind of dry and crumbly and, you know, really buttery. I'm just going to tip this onto the worktop and finish off mixing it by hand. I might have actually put too much water in there, so I'm going to add a bit more flour. Right, so there's a nice lump of dough, and I'm just going to wrap it in plastic film and stick it in the fridge to rest for about half an hour. Okay, pastry's chilled down. I've got my jar of mincemeat from the other day, and I've got some bun trays to make the pies in. So I'm just going to butter each one. And now you want to roll out some pastry, so you want plenty of flour on your worktop to stop it sticking, and roll it out to about just under 1/4 of an inch, you know, 3 or 4 millimeters. I was listening to a radio show the other day where they interviewed a chap who has a hugely popular mince pie recipe on the interwebs. He was claiming it was the easiest thing ever, and of course it is if you do it his way, which is you buy the pastry, you buy the mincemeat, and you don't even use a rolling pin, you just use blobs of pastry and squash them flat, because he reckons that some people have difficulty using a rolling pin. I can't imagine what is difficult about that, but you know, I'm an expert. So the cutter needs to be just a bit bigger than the dimples in the tray. And we pop the pastry in. Now I've rolled out some more pastry, and I'm gonna cut the tops. Now I've got this Kiddie's almost star-shaped cutter, because I like mince pies that are not entirely covered in pastry on the top, so you can see a bit of the lovely rich gooiness inside. And you know, before I got this, I would cut a small circle and make a big circular hole in the middle of it, but we'll try and do stars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 3 more. So stack your stars up, keep them on one side till you need them. And now you want a dollop of mincemeat in each pie. Try not to put too much in, because it'll sort of boil over and get scorched and not be nice. Then I've got some water, and I'm just going to moisten the pointy ends of my stars and stick them on. And at this point you want to get your oven on to preheat to 180 Celsius if it's a fan oven, or 200 if it isn't. Okay, so I made 24 pies, and I've got a bit of pastry left over. I could probably make, I don't know, 2 or 3 more out of that. I've got a beaten egg with a splash of milk in it, and you just need to paint that on the top of each pie and around the rim as well. Then you slam these in the oven for about 15 minutes, and then I'll have a look and see how they're doing. Here we are, 24 beautiful mince pies, and they actually took 25 minutes, but after 15 minutes I turned them around and swapped them over on their shelves. Now, a little, decorative touch, just sift caster sugar over them, powdered sugar, and you need to let them cool down, and then I'll let you eat them, okay? Okay, look at our mince pies, aren't they gorgeous? Now, I get to taste one. As promised, that pastry, delicious, crunchy, buttery, crumbly, and the filling, wow. Mince pies, Merry Christmas. And that's that. I hope you enjoyed it. Now please share it with all your friends on social media, subscribe to KeefCooks if you haven't already done so, and join the conversation. I love to see people's comments and respond to them, but I don't respond well to abuse and trolling, so don't do that. Okay, thanks for watching and see you next time.